talked about this, I think, last week. When you think about something, when an idea crosses your mind, it goes through different stages. The first stage, or the first few stages, it gets into your mind, you start thinking about it, then you start talking to yourself, should I do it or not? Okay, like you hear people talking about donating to ICM, for example. Then the idea of donation crosses your mind. Okay, up to here, there is no reward. So an idea crosses your mind. Then you start talking to yourself, okay, should I donate or not? Also up to here, there is no reward or there is no punishment if it's a bad idea. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَجَاوَزَ عَنْ أُمَّتِي مَا حَدَّثَتْ بِهِ أَنفُسَهَا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pardoned my ummah about the ideas that crosses their minds, as long as they are talking to themselves, they are not decided yet. But once you start having an intention, then here where the reward or the punishment would be. Okay, like now I intended to donate. Now, even if I fail to donate later on for any reason, I would get the reward of donation. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا هَمَّ أَحَدُكُمْ بِالْحَسَنَةِ. If one of you intended to do good deed, and he wasn't able to do that, he will get the reward. Okay, the intention is the first step before action. So what you intended in your heart, then you'll be held accountable for that. So if he intended to break the salah is over. Okay. If he intended to break his fast, whether he ate or not after that, his fast is over. Okay? طيب. We talked about this. The intention is the condition of the heart. We talked about this at the beginning. It is permissible for someone who is praying with a jama'ah. Say you are praying with a jama'ah. Under certain circumstances, it is permissible for him to leave the jama'ah with the intention to finish the salah by himself. Okay, it happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. You remember that hadith of Mu'adh? One day Mu'adh was leading Salatul Isha, and he made the recitation very long. One of the Sahaba was praying behind him. The salah is too long for him. So what happened that he intended to separate from him. While he is in the salah, he intended in his heart to finish the salah by himself. So he finished the salah. He did not follow the imam. And then after the salah, he went to the Prophet ﷺ and complained about what Mu'az had done. The Prophet ﷺ condemned the action of Mu'az. قال له أفتان أنت يا معاذ. Do you want to cause fitna to the people? Don't read long surahs in Salat al-Isha. And he did not say anything to that man. This means that he accepted what he had done. So if that is the case, if, for example, the imam went in the recitation, beyond the limits, because the Prophet ﷺ set limits for the length of each salah. In that salah, Mu'az was reading Surah Al-Baqarah, in Surah Al-Isha. He told him, don't read long surahs like that. Read وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ. Surahs of that length. So if the imam exceeded that limit, and you are sick or tired, then you have that right to intend to separate from him. You don't have to cut your salah. Now in my heart, the intention in my heart that I'm not praying, I'm not following the imam anymore. I will finish the rest of the salah by myself while I'm standing up in the line. So if there is, under certain circumstances, that is allowed to separate your intention from following the imam under such type of circumstances. طيب, any question related to the niyyah before moving to the second part? طيب, the second prerequisite, that the time for the prayer having begun. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. That the prayers were made obligatory upon Muslims to be done upon specific times, at specific times. طيب. Sheikh Muhammad, I need to use one of those boards, inshallah. Yeah. I don't know if this... the time for the Salah, you know what appears to us, that the sun moves from the east to the west. Okay, we all know that the earth is the one that moves. But what appears to us that the sun moves from the east to the west. So if this is the east, and this is the west. So the sun starts rising from the east and goes up. Okay. Now, once the sun started, crossing its meridian towards the west, this is the beginning of the time of Salat al-Zuhr. This is called Zawal. Zawal. Okay? Zawal. Now, if you have a stick or an object, when the sun is going from the east towards the west, the shadow will be here, right? Now, the shadow starts very long and then it keeps getting short. Okay, it will be moving like this, okay? Until it reached a minimum length, okay? Then right after, once the sun passes its meridian, the shadow will be in this direction, but it will increase again, okay? Now, this minimum length of the shadow took place at the time of the Zawal, okay? Now say this is the minimum. It starts like very long, then decreasing until it reaches this length, okay? Now from here and until when the shadow beyond that point is exactly the same length like the object itself, this is the end of the Zuhr time. Again, the Zuhr time starts from Zawal and continues until the length of the shadow beyond that point is exactly the same as the length of the object itself. So if this like 1 foot, once the shadow beyond this point is 1 foot, then this is the end of the time of Zuhr. Because the Prophet ﷺ in Hadith Jibreel, says that إذا صار ظل الشيء مثله, when the length of the shadow of an object is exactly as the same as the length of the shadow itself, that is the end of the time of Salat al-Zuhr. Okay? So Salat al-Zuhr starts, but you do the measurement from here, not from here. Once the shadow reaches the minimum amount and then it starts increasing again, you start measuring from here. Once it is 1 foot, like this 1 foot, then this is the end of Zuhr and the beginning of time, or the time of Asr. Okay? So this is the time of Zuhr, and at the end of the time of Zuhr, the time of Asr started. Now the time of Asr, now Asr and Isha, they are very unique salawat because they have 2 times. Okay? For Asr prayer, let me see this. Now this is here, as I said, this is the end of Zuhr and beginning of Asr. Now from this point until when the length of the shadow from here is twice the length of the object itself, this is the end of the first time of Asr, because Asr has 2 times. Okay, the first time is called al-waqt al-ikhtiyari, the time of choice. Between this time and this time, you can do the Salah anytime. It's preferred to be as close at the beginning of the time, but you can do it here without being committing anything. Okay? But from this time until sunset, this is called the time of necessity. You cannot delay Asr and do it beyond this time and sunset unless you have an excuse. Because it was mentioned in hadith, an authentic hadith in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ says, this is the salah of the munafiq, the hypocrite. He delays the Asr time, Asr salah, until the sun is about to set, then he will stand up and pray 4 quick rak'at. لا يذكر الله فيهن إلا قليلا. So it is highly disliked to pray Asr here, between this time and sunset. Now, between the end of Zuhr and until when the shadow of this object is twice the length of the object, which is here. This is 1 foot, this is 2 feet. 2 feet. Now this here, this is the time where you can do your Asr prayer. It's preferred to be as close to the beginning, but you can do it any time here. But it is disliked to delay it after this time and do it between this time and sunset. Okay? This is the time for Salat al-Asr. Of course, the time of Salat al-Maghrib, starts at sunset and lasts until the disappearance of Ash-Shafaq al-Ahmad, the reddish twilight. You know, when you look towards the west, you know, if you cannot see the sun, even if it is still bright, but you cannot see the circle, you cannot see the sun disappeared, you know, beyond the horizon. This is the beginning of Salat al-Maghrib. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, وَصَلَاةُ الْمَغْرِبِ إِذَا وَجَبَتَ الشَّمْسِ. Once the sun disappeared, this is the beginning of Salat al-Maghrib. And it continues until the twilight disappeared. You know, if that brightness that you see towards the west disappeared, now this is the end of the Maghrib time and the beginning of Isha time. Okay? Isha is like Asr prayer. It has 2 times. The first time, which is called al-Waqt al-Ikhtiyari, which is the choice time, is from when the twilight disappeared until the middle of the night. Until the middle of the night. Now, from the middle of the night and until dawn, Fajr time, this is the time of necessity. As long, if you do not have an excuse, you should not delay Isha and do it after the middle of the night. It is highly disliked to do that without an excuse. But if you have an excuse, then you can delay it. You can do it any time before Fajr time. But the best time for Salat al-Isha is between after the disappearance of the twilight and before the middle of the night. Now, what is considered to be the middle of the night? 12 o'clock? No. The middle of the night, because it's changed, it's not constant. You know, in the summertime is different than in the winter time. So sunset and Fajr. Okay. Now this is the night. The night starts at sunset and ends at Fajr time. For example, these days sunset is about 6 o'clock. Okay. Fajr time is about 5:20. So how many hours? From 6 to 12, 6 hours and 5, 11 hours and 20 minutes. So half of that is what? 11 hours and 20 minutes. It's like 5 hours and 40. Right? 5 hours. So 5 hours and 40 minutes from here, it will be 11:40. So 11:40 is the middle of the night. So Salat al-Isha has to be done not from sunset, from here. When the twilight disappears, from this time until middle of the night. Now, if you have an excuse, like for example, you came very tired from your work, and you know, if you pray, you won't have khushu'. This could be a valid excuse. You can delay Salat al-Isha and do it after the middle of the night. Okay, but generally, it is highly disliked to delay Isha and do it, you know, between the middle of the night and Fajr prayer. Unless if you have an excuse, it won't be disliked. Okay? Yes?
From back home, we have been told the time for Maghrib prayer is very short, like, you know, and when you say that twilight goes away, it's more the dusk and the dawn kind of, in an area like 10, 15, 20 minutes kind of, that's the rim. But then the other opinion is, unless there is an excuse, you can go all the way till the beginning of Isha. So now, say for example, nowadays it's like the 6 p.m. is Maghrib time, around 6 p.m. Isha starts at 7:30, 7:20. So can you do your Maghrib prayer if you have excuse at 7:10, or you have to wrap it up by 6:15 or 20?
Right. But by the way, when back home they said so, they might be true. You know, they say Maghrib time is very short. Because it depends on your location on planet Earth. If you are towards the north, you'll have very long time, especially during the summer time, between Maghrib and, during winter time. You have a long time between Maghrib and Isha. It depends, you know, where are you located on Earth. If you are close to the equator, it will be short, but the more you go north or deep south, you know, it will be. So as long as you perform your Maghrib prayer before the disappearance of the twilight, you are okay. But it's also time preferred to do the Salah as close as to the beginning of the time. There are some exceptions, we'll go through them inshallah later on. Okay? Now, those are the different times for the Salah. Of course, Fajr prayer starts when the true dawn breaks. The true dawn is brightness that appears in the horizon horizontally, spread horizontally. You know, when you look to the horizon, to the east horizon, and you see brightness, and that brightness keep coming brighter and brighter and brighter, this is the true dawn. Because we have false dawn. False dawn is part of the night. You might see some brightness, but it's not horizontal. It goes like vertical. But for a few moments, and then it will disappear. This is called the false Fajr. The true Fajr, the true dawn is, you know, you see it spread over the horizon, and it keeps, you know, getting brighter and brighter and brighter. Now, from that time, the time of Fajr, until sunrise, this is the time for Salat al-Fajr. Now, those times were shown to the Prophet ﷺ by Jibril alayhi salam. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibril, and he led the Prophet ﷺ in those 5 prayers. So he did it at the beginning of the time and the end of the time. The first day he came and he prayed each salah with the Prophet ﷺ at the beginning of the time, and then the second day he came and he led the Prophet ﷺ in the salah at the end of the time, and he says as-salatu bayna hada wa hada, that the prayers should be performed by this time and that time. Okay, now using calculations to for prayer calendars is acceptable, and no one objected that. Okay, because what's required is to know the time for the salah. If you can know it by having a stick and measure the shadow, or by any other means, that will be acceptable. But there are certain differences in different calendars, especially for Fajr prayer and Isha prayer, because the algorithm or the formula that they use for Isha and Fajr prayer, I think they have different opinions in an angle that should be plugged in that formula. I think some people, they said it's 14 degrees, and others said this is why you might find, you know, differences in the beginning of Fajr prayer and Isha prayer. Okay, to be in the safe side, just take the safest one. Safest one is the one that, for example, if you have 2 calendars, one of them says Fajr is 5:10, the other says is 5:30. So go by this, because by doing it 5:30, you are definitely correct by all calendars. But if you do it here, by some calendars, you are not praying on time. You pray before the time. Okay. Now in Ramadan, you do the opposite. You stop by the earlier and pray by the later, to be in the safe side. To be in the safe, because I know this is a disagreement among those who, you know, did the calculation, whether to use this angle or this angle. Okay. Both of them, they said I'm correct, but we do not have any way to say who's is correct. So the best way is to be in the safe side and stop eating, you know, by the earliest and pray by the latest. Yes.
Is that the same case with the Dhuhr time or Asr time for Shafi and Hanafi madhab?
No, not for calculation. This is based on originally the Hanafi's opinion that Asr prayer start when the shadow of the object is twice the length of the object itself. This is why they pray Fajr prayer, Asr prayer later than, you know, the Shafi'i and the rest of the scholars. No. But you know, Hadith Jibril alayhi salam showed very clearly that the beginning of the time of Dhuhr prayer, when the shadow of the object is exactly the same length of the object itself. Wallahu ta'ala alam. طيب. Yes.
In some mosques, I noticed that they pray Asr right after Zohar here, like especially Shia. So if I pray at their mosque and if I see after Zohar they are praying Asr, should I join them or
La,
pray separately?
No, because the salah has to be at the time. إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا, unless there's an excuse. You know, if there's an excuse, you can combine the prayers. But in regular times, you should pray each salah at its time. Okay? طيب. Some related point to this issue of timing. The Zuhr prayer, it is recommended if it's extremely hot. It is recommended to delay it very close to Asr time. Even at the masjid, if it's extremely hot, you know, it's preferred to delay the Salat al-Zuhr until very close, like maybe 10 or 15 minutes before Asr time, to let it cool a little bit so people can walk and pray at the masjid. So it is recommended during those times. Also for Isha prayer, the Imam should take in consideration the situation of those in the masjid. If everyone is in the masjid at the beginning of the time, then he should do the Salah at that time. If not everyone is at the masjid, it's preferred for the Imam to delay Isha until everyone is in. Jabir رضي الله تعالى عنه says, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا رآهم اجتمعوا عجل. If the Prophet saw that all the people are in the masjid, then he would do the prayer early at the beginning of the time. وإذا رآهم تأخروا أو أبطأوا تأخر. And if not too many people in the masjid, then he would delay it up to 1/3 of the night. So the sunnah for the Isha, that the Imam should look. If everyone that we know that he comes to Salat al-Isha is there, then he can do the Salah right at the time. Okay? Or if he thinks, more brothers will come, if we delay it a little bit, then he can do that. But at the end, this goes to the judgment of the Imam. If, like in our communities, it's very hard, to delay Salat al-Isha, especially during the summer time, because Isha comes sometimes after 9 o'clock, 9:30, and 10 o'clock. Okay, but if in other situation where Isha gets in early, like 6:30, for example, it could be better, to say that we're going to pray Isha at 8:30 to make sure that many people will come to the Salah. That could be done, and there is no harm, okay? Because the Prophet ﷺ used to do that. This is for Salat al-Isha and Salat al-Zuhr, okay? But the general rule is all the time better to do the Salah at the beginning of the time. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
If we know the weather is very bad,
Yeah.
after we pay the Dhuhr, then we pay the Asr earlier than the time. Same goes for Isha. If we know weather is bad, Khan is coming. But when I say Khan, it is the storm. We name the Khan storm.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Time. If it is raining now or snowing now, excuse me, while we are praying, for example, Dhuhr prayer, yes, it is a sunnah to combine Zuhr and Asr prayer, or Maghrib and Isha. But if the weatherman says it might rain or snow at Asr time, then we should not combine. Now what should happen if it snows, if it rains at that time, then pray at your home, and you will get the reward of the Jama'ah, because the excuse prevented you from coming to the masjid. Yeah. But if it's raining now or snowing now, of course it would be recommended. But it goes back to the Imam. We should not force. If the Imam says, I'm not going to combine, then we should not perform another Jama'ah and combine. No. Because we combine the prayers to get the benefit. Praying behind that Imam, because he's the regular Imam of the masjid. Okay? طيب. I think one of the sisters here.
In reference to Fajr prayer, if you're using the calendar as a guide to assist you in determining when you can no longer make prayer. So let's say, for example, they say Fajr should be goes out or is completed by say 6:30.
Okay.
But the sky is before 6:30, the sky is really getting light. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the sun isn't completely up yet, but the sky is really light and this looks like daylight. So should you be stopping sometime before 6:30?
Yeah, if you're sure, but brightness does not mean that sun is up.
Right.
If you can see the sun, if you look towards the east and you can see the sun, then this is sunrise. Of course, you can, the Fajr prayer times it ends at that time. But just brightness, no. As long as the sun did not rise red. Okay? Type. Yes, go ahead.
We can follow the NASA patterns. They do the sunrise and sunset.
Yes. The calendar, right? Yes. Yeah, yes, exactly. Well, usually most of the calendars have problems with the beginning of Fajr time and Isha time. Because, the formula used, as I said, they use different angles in that. This is why the outcome is different. Now, yes?
How about a situation where the sun might be up over the horizon? You can't actually see it because of it being blocked by buildings. Do we have to make a calculation on that, or do you actually have to see the sun?
No. The calendars, especially when it comes to sunset and sunrise, the difference is almost like plus or minus 1 minute or so. So I think it's very safe to go by the calendar. If you have a calendar that says, sunset is like 6:04, then most likely. But sometimes, they add like a minute or subtract a minute, something like that. Just give it, 1 more minute or 2 minutes, and then perform your prayer. Now, yes?
Yeah, actually, I have a question about the recommended to pray in the masjid for Subuh and Isha. So is there, about the hadith, I'm wondering how...
It's not recommended only. We'll talk about this, inshallah, details when we get to Salatul Jama'ah. Okay? Yes,
whatever the NASA time or the sunset and sunrise, according to the NASA definition of the sunset, when it touches the horizon. But Islamic definition is when it go all the way below the horizon. Because it will be around 3.5 or sometime 3 minutes, or depending on the location, it can be up to 4 minute differences.
The Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا وَجَبَتِ الشَّمْسُ. Wajabat means fell. It fell. You cannot see it anymore.
Below the sun.
Yeah. No, don't. Some people they think even the brightness that should disappear. No. Just if you look towards the east and you cannot see the sun because it disappears below the horizon, this is the time for Salat al-Maghrib. Okay? طيب. Inshallah we'll cover the Salat al-Jama'ah inshallah later on. طيب. If one missed many prayers, then he has to make them up in the same order. Like if someone slept, okay, he did not pray Fajr prayer, Zuhr prayer, and he works up at Asr time. What should he do? He should start first by making up Fajr prayer, then Zuhr prayer, then Asr prayer. Now I'm talking about someone who forgot or slept. If someone intentionally did not perform a prayer, is aware about the time for Zuhr prayer, but intentionally he did not pray, according to the stronger opinion of the scholars, it won't benefit him even if he made up that prayer 100 times. Because Allah says, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. That salah had gone. Okay? But if someone had an excuse, he did not pray because of an excuse, such as forgetting or sleeping, or he got stuck in the traffic, there is no way for him to pray. That person has to make up that prayer. Okay? Now, if someone, and many people have this, that when they were young, they did not pray for a long time. They did not start praying until they reach the age of 30. Do they have to make up all those prayers they missed? No. But they need to make as much voluntary prayers, sadaqah, and as much as they can do good deeds, but they were not required to make up those prayers because they did not do those prayers intentionally. And Allah says the salah has to be done and performed in specific times. Okay? But he has to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, and then to do as much good deeds as he can. Okay? So if someone missed a prayer because of an excuse, or more than one prayer, when he makes up those prayers, he should do them in the proper order. It was happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The Muslims were very busy digging the trench in Ghazwat al-Khandaq, and they wasn't able to pray Zuhur, Asr, until Maghrib time. At Maghrib time, they get the chance to pray. So the Prophet ﷺ started first by praying Zuhur prayer, then Asr prayer, then Maghrib.